How can a genuine diamond be identified?
There are several tests that can be performed without the aid of tools. A knowledgeable person can recognize the surface luster, straightness and flatness of facets, and highlight reflectivity. Diamonds become warm in a warm room and cool if the surroundings are cool. A simple test that can be done is exposing the stones to warmth and cold and then touching them to one's lips to determine their appropriate temperature. This is especially effective when the results of this test are compared to the results of the test done on a diamond known to be genuine. Another test is to pick up the stone with a moistened fingertip. If this can be done, then the stone is likely to be a diamond. The majority of other stones cannot be picked up in this way. The water test is another simple test. A drop of water is placed on a table. A perfectly clean diamond has the ability to almost magnetize water and will keep the water from spreading. An instrument called a diamond probe can detect even the most sophisticated fakes. Gemologists always use this as part of their inspection.
How large is the uterus?
The uterus, from the Latin, meaning womb, is an inverted, pear-shaped structure located between the urinary bladder and the rectum. The uterus is normally 3 inches, 7.5 centimeters, long and 2 inches, 5 centimeters, wide. It weighs 1 to 1.4 ounces, 30 to 40 grams. During pregnancy, implantation of a fertilized ovum occurs in the uterus. The uterus then houses, nourishes, and protects the developing fetus. It can increase 3 to 6 times in size during the course of pregnancy. At the end of gestation, the uterus is usually 12 inches, 30 centimeters, long and weighs 2.4 pounds, 1,100 grams. The total weight of the uterus and its contents, fetus and fluid, at the end of pregnancy is approximately 22 pounds, 10 kilograms.
How many quills does a porcupine have?
For its defensive weapon, the average North American porcupine has about 30,000 quills or specialized hairs. Comparable in hardness and flexibility to slivers of celluloid and so sharply pointed that they can penetrate any hide. The quills that do the most damage are the short ones that stud the porcupine's muscular tail. With a few lashes, the porcupine can send a rain of quills that have tiny scale-like barbs into the skin of its adversary. The quills work their way inward because of their barbs and the involuntary muscular action of the victim. Sometimes the quills can work themselves out, but other times the quills pierce vital organs, and the victim dies. Slow-footed and stocky, Porcupines spend much of their time in the trees, using their formidable incisors to strip off bark and foliage for their food, and supplement their diets with fruits and grasses. Porcupines have a ravenous appetite for salt, as herbivores. Plant-eating animals, their diets have insufficient salt. So natural salt licks, animal bones left by carnivores, meat-eating animals. Yellow pond lilies, and other items having a high salt content, including paints, plywood adhesives, and human clothing that bears traces of sweat, have a strong appeal to porcupines.
What is the purpose of goosebumps?
The puckering of the skin that takes place when goose flesh is formed is the result of contraction of the muscle fibers in the skin. This muscular activity will produce more heat, and raises the temperature of the body.
How much fluid do the kidneys remove from the blood?
The kidneys filter about 48 gallons, 182 liters of blood daily and produce about 4 ounces of filtrate per minute. About 1.5 to 2 quarts, 1.4 to 1.9 liters, of urine is eventually excreted per day. The entire blood supply is filtered through the kidneys 60 times per day. The kidneys in a person living 73 years filter almost 1.3 million gallons of blood.
What are the major organs of the digestive system?
The digestive system consists of the upper gastrointestinal tract, the lower gastrointestinal tract, and the accessory organs. The organs of the upper gastrointestinal tract are the oral cavity, esophagus, and stomach. The organs of the lower gastrointestinal tract are the small intestine and large intestine, also called the colon. The accessory organs are the salivary glands, the liver, gallbladder, and pancreas.
Why does a boomerang return to its thrower?
Two well-known scientific principles dictate the characteristic flight of a boomerang. 1. The force of lift on a curved surface caused by air flowing over it. And, 2. The unwillingness of a spinning gyroscope to move from its position. When a person throws a boomerang properly, he or she causes it to spin vertically. As a result, the boomerang will generate lift, but it will be to one side rather than upwards. As the boomerang spins vertically and moves forward, air flows faster over the top arm at a particular moment than over the bottom arm. Accordingly, the top arm produces more lift than the bottom arm and the boomerang tries to twist itself. But because it is spinning fast, it acts like a gyroscope and turns to the side in an arc. If the boomerang stays in the air long enough, it will turn a full circle and return to the thrower. Every boomerang has a built-in orbit diameter, which is not affected by a person throwing the boomerang harder or spinning it faster.
What is the Superfund Act?
In 1980, the U.S. Congress passed the Comprehensive Environmental Response, Compensation, and Liability Act, commonly known as the Superfund Program. This law, along with amendments in 1986 and 1990, established a $16.3 billion Superfund financed jointly by federal and state governments and by special taxes on chemical and petrochemical industries, which provide 86% of the funding. The purpose of the Superfund is to identify and clean up abandoned hazardous waste, dump sites and leaking underground tanks that threaten human health and the environment. To keep taxpayers from footing most of the bill, cleanups are based on the polluter pays principle. The EPA is charged with locating dangerous dump sites, finding the potentially liable culprits, ordering them to pay for the entire cleanup and suing them if they don't. When the EPA can find no responsible party, it draws money out of the Superfund for cleanup.
How old are fossils?
The oldest known fossils are of bacteria that left their impressions approximately 3.5 billion years ago. The oldest animal fossils are of invertebrates that lived approximately 700 million years ago. The largest number of fossils come from the Cambrian period of 505 to 590 million years ago, when living organisms began to develop skeletons and hard parts. Since these parts tended to last longer than ordinary tissue, they were more likely to be preserved in clay and become fossilized.
Is the large intestine essential for life?
Since the role of the large intestine is mainly as a storage site for fecal material and the elimination of it from the body, it is not essential for life. Individuals who suffer from colon cancer or other diseases will often have their colon removed. The end of the ileum is brought to the abdominal wall. Food residues are eliminated directly from the ileum into a sac attached to the abdominal wall on the outside of the body. Alternatively, the ileum may be connected directly to the anal canal.
Where are the largest wind farms?
Wind turbines harness the wind's energy to generate electricity. The turbines, consisting of 2 or 3 blades, are mounted on tall towers to capture the wind. Wind turbines can stand alone for water pumping, communications, or for use by individual homeowners or farmers to supply electric power. Wind farms are clusters of wind turbines that generate electricity. The largest wind farms in the United States are in Texas, which has a total installed capacity of 7,118 megawatts.
How long can an orange tree produce oranges?
An average orange tree will produce fruit for 50 years, but 80 years of productivity is not uncommon. And a few trees are known to be still producing fruit after more than a century. An orange tree may attain a height of 20 feet, 6.1 meters. But some trees are as much as 30 feet, 9.1 meters, high. Orange trees grow well in a variety of soils but prefer subtropical settings.
What is the name of the bird that perches on the black rhinoceros's back?
The bird, a relative of the starling, is called an oxpecker, a member of the Sternidae family. Found only in Africa, the yellow-billed oxpecker, Buphagus africanus, is widespread over much of western and central Africa, while the red-billed oxpecker, Buphagus erythrorhynchus, lives in eastern Africa from the Red Sea to Natal. 7 to 8 inches, 17 to 20 centimeters, long with a coffee-brown body. The oxpecker feeds on more than 20 species of ticks that live in the hide of the black rhinoceros. Diceros bicornis, also called the hook-lipped rhino. The bird spends most of its time on the rhinoceros or on other animals, such as the antelope, zebra, giraffe, or buffalo. The bird has even been known to roost on the body of its host. The relationship between the oxpecker and the rhinoceros is a type of symbiosis, a close association between two organisms in which at least one of them benefits, called mutualism. The rhinoceros relief of its ticks and the bird's feeding clearly demonstrates mutualism, a condition in which both organisms benefit. In addition, the oxpecker, having much better eyesight than the nearsighted rhinoceros, alerts its host with its shrill cries and flight when danger approaches.
Are tigers in danger of becoming extinct?
Tigers are listed as endangered by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the World Conservation Union, IUCN, and are included in the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. They are found in isolated regions of India, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, Southeast Asia, Manchuria, China, Korea, Russia, and Indonesia. 4 subspecies of tiger: Balinese tiger, Panthera tigris baelica, South China tiger, Panthera tigris amoyensis, Caspian tiger, Panthera tigris virgata, and Javan tiger. Panthera tigris sondiaca, have become extinct due to habitat loss, poaching, and overhunting. The Siberian tiger, also known as the Amur tiger, Panthera tigris altaica, is one subspecies that has made a comeback in recent years. Its total worldwide population had dropped to 20 or 30 individuals in 1940. But there are over 500 in the wild today. Since mid-1990s there has been an increase in the poaching of the Bengal tiger. Panthera tigris, since the bones of this subspecies are a valuable commodity on the black market. Tiger bones are used in Chinese medicines. Current population estimates are 470,000 to 690,000 elephants throughout Africa. A newer concern is the reduction of their natural habitat. The human populations are expanding to areas of elephant habitat. New land areas, that were once elephant habitat areas, are now being used for agriculture.
How many individuals are infected with HIV/AIDS?
At the end of 2009, it was estimated that 33.3 million people worldwide were living with HIV/AIDS. Adults accounted for 30.8 million cases of HIV/AIDS. 51% or million are women, and children under 15 accounted for 2.5 million cases. Since 1981, more than 25 million people have died from AIDS.
What are the parts of a leaf and the major functions of leaves?
Leaves, outgrowths of the shoot apex, are found in a variety of shapes, sizes, and arrangements. Most leaves have a blade, a petiole, stipules, and veins. The blade is the flattened portion of the leaf. The petiole is the slender stalk of the leaf. The stipules, found on some but not all leaves, are located at the base of the petiole where it joins the stem. Stipules may be leaf-like and show considerable variation in size. Veins, xylem, and phloem run through the leaf. Leaves are the main photosynthetic organ. However, they are also important in gas exchange and water movement throughout the whole plant.
What is a moraine?
A moraine is a mound, ridge, or any other distinct accumulation of unsorted, unstratified material or drift, deposited chiefly by direct action of glacier ice.
How common are multiple births?
In 2007, 138,961 twins were born in the United States. This represented 3.2% of all live births, a birth ratio of 32.2 per 1,000 births. There were 5,967 triplet births, 369 quadruplet births, and 91 quintuplets and other higher-order births. In 2007, the birth rate for triplets or higher-order multiple births was 148.9 per 100,000 live births.
Why does the actual amount of computer storage space differ from the advertised amount of storage?
Computer storage space for hard drives and other storage media is calculated in base 2 using binary format with a byte as the basic unit. The common units of computer storage are kilobyte, KB, 024 bytes megabyte, MB. 1024 kilobytes or 1,048,576 bytes gigabyte, GB, 024 megabytes or 1,073,741,824 bytes terabyte. TB, 024 gigabytes, or 1,099,511,627,776 bytes. However, since consumers are more familiar with the decimal base 10, system of numbers, computer manufacturers describe storage sizes in base 10, where 1 megabyte is 1 million bytes and 1 gigabyte is 1 billion bytes. Therefore, for each gigabyte they are over-reporting storage space by 73,741,824 bytes. The concept is further complicated because some storage media may have the actual amount of advertised storage, but some of the available storage is lost due to formatting.
What was the first national scientific society organized in the United States?
The first national scientific society organized in the United States was the American Association for the Advancement of Science, AAAS. It was established on September 20, 1848, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, for the purpose of advancing science in every way. The first president of the AAAS was William Charles Redfield, 1789 to 1857.
What is a Foucault pendulum?
An instrument devised by Jean Foucault, 1819 to 1868, in 1851 to prove that Earth rotates on an axis. The pendulum consisted of a heavy ball suspended by a very long fine wire. Sand beneath the pendulum recorded the plane of rotation of the pendulum over time. A reconstruction of Foucault's experiment is located in Portland, Oregon, at its convention center. It swings from a cable 90 feet, 27.4 meters, long, making it the longest pendulum in the world.
What are two of the most common forms of dementia?
The term dementia describes a group of symptoms that are caused by changes in brain function. The two most common forms of dementia in older people are Alzheimer's disease and multi-infarct dementia, sometimes called vascular dementia. There is no cure for these types of dementia. In Alzheimer's disease, nerve cell changes in certain parts of the brain result in the death of a large number of cells. Some researchers believe there is a genetic origin to Alzheimer's disease. An estimated 5.3 million Americans of all ages have Alzheimer's. It is the sixth leading cause of death in the United States and was reported as the cause of death for 74,632 people in 2007. The symptoms of Alzheimer's disease range from mild forgetfulness to serious impairments in thinking, judgment, and the ability to perform daily activities. In multi-infarct dementia, a series of small strokes or changes in the brain's blood supply may result in the death of brain tissue. The location in the brain where the small strokes occur determines the seriousness of the problem and the symptoms that arise. Symptoms that begin suddenly may be a sign of this kind of dementia. People with multi-infarct dementia are likely to show signs of improvement or remain stable for long periods of time, then quickly develop new symptoms if more strokes occur. In many people with multi-infarct dementia, high blood pressure is to blame.
How is the glass used in movie stunts made?
The glass might be made of candy, sugar boiled down to a translucent pain, or plastic. This looks like glass and will shatter like glass, but will not cut a performer.
What is the smallest bone in the body?
The stapes, stirrup, in the middle ear is the smallest bone in the body. It measures to 1.34 inches, 2.6 to 3.4 centimeters, and weighs 0.00071 to 0.0015 ounce, 0.002 to 0.004 gram.
What are the major types of bonds?
There are three major types of chemical bonds: covalent, ionic, and hydrogen. The type of bond that is established is determined by the electron structure. Ionic bonds are formed when electrons are exchanged between two atoms, and the resulting bond is relatively weak. Covalent bonds, the strongest type of bond, occur when electrons are shared between atoms. Hydrogen bonds are temporary, but they are important because they are crucial to the shape of a particular protein and have the ability to be rapidly formed and reformed. The following chart explains the types of bonds and their characteristics.
How fast is DNA copied?
In prokaryotes, about 1000 nucleotides can be copied per second. So all of the 4.7 megabytes of Escherichia coli can be copied in about 40 minutes. Since the eukaryotic genome is immense compared to the prokaryotic genome, one might think that the eukaryotic DNA replication would take a very long time. However, actual measurements show that the chromosomes in eukaryotes have multiple replication sites per chromosome. Eukaryotic cells can replicate about 500 to 5000 bases per minute. The actual time to copy the entire genome would depend on the size of their genome.
How long did it take to prove the four-color map theorem?
The four-color map problem was first posed by Francis Guthrie, 1831 to 1899, in 1852. 3. While coloring a map of the English counties, Guthrie discovered he could do it with only 4 colors and no 2 adjacent counties would be the same color. He extrapolated the question to whether every map, no matter how complicated and how many countries are on the map, could be colored using only 4 colors with no 2 adjacent countries being the same color. The theorem was not proved until 1976, 124 years after the question had been raised. By Kenneth Appel, 1932, and Wolfgang Haken, 1928. Their proof is considered correct although it relies on computers for the calculations. There is no known simple way to check the proof by hand.
What are the liquid fuels used by the space shuttles?
Liquid hydrogen is used as a fuel, with liquid oxygen used to burn it. These two fuels are stored in chambers separately and then mixed to combust the two. Because oxygen must be kept below -183 degrees Celsius to remain a liquid, and hydrogen must be at -253 degrees Celsius to remain a liquid, they are both difficult to handle, but make useful rocket fuel.
How do birds learn to sing the distinctive melody of their respective species?
The ability to learn the proper song appears to be influenced by both heredity and experience. Scientists have speculated that a bird is genetically programmed with the ability to recognize the song of its own species and with the tendency to learn its own song. As a bird begins to sing, it goes through a stage of practice, which closely resembles the babbling of human infants, through which it perfects the notes and structure of its distinctive song. In order to produce a perfect imitation, the bird must apparently hear the song from an adult during its first months of life.
What groups of reptiles are living today?
The three orders of reptiles that are alive today are, 1. Chelonia, which includes turtles, terrapins, and tortoises, 2. Squamata, which includes lizards and snakes, and 3. Crocodilia, which includes crocodiles and alligators.
How is dry ice made?
Dry ice, a solid form of carbon dioxide, CO2. Used primarily to refrigerate perishables that are being transported from one location to another. The carbon dioxide, which at normal temperatures is a gas, is stored and shipped as a liquid in tanks that are pressurized at 1073 pounds per square inch. To make dry ice, the carbon dioxide liquid is withdrawn from the tank and allowed to evaporate at a normal pressure in a porous bag. This rapid evaporation consumes so much heat that part of the liquid CO2 freezes to a temperature of -109 degrees Fahrenheit, -78 degrees Celsius. The frozen liquid is then compressed by machines into blocks of dry ice, which will melt into a gas again when set out at room temperature. It was first made commercially in 1925 by the Pressed Air Devices Company of Long Island City, New York, through the efforts of Thomas Benton Slate. It was used by Schrafft's of New York in July 1925 to keep ice cream from melting. The first large sale of dry ice was made later in that year to Breyer Ice Cream Company of New York. Although used mostly as a refrigerant or coolant, other uses include medical procedures such as freezing warts, blast cleaning, freeze branding animals, and creating special effects for live performances and films.
What is unique about the water lily Victoria amazonica?
T is very big. Found only on the Amazon River. This water lily has leaves that can reach up to 6 feet, 1.8 meters, in diameter. In a single season, a plant will produce 40 to 50 leaves. The leaves are very buoyant, capable of supporting the weight of a small child. Mature leaves may be able to support 100 pounds, 45 kilograms, if evenly distributed on the leaf. The flowers of Victoria amazonica reach up to 12 inches, 30 centimeters, in height. The flowers open at dusk and are only open on 2 successive nights. During the first evening, the flower is white. They close during the day and the next evening the flower has changed its color to a pink or purplish red. Each plant only has one flower at a time. And after the second evening the flower closes up and sinks below the surface of the water.
What is an atom?
An atom is the smallest unit of an element, containing the unique chemical properties of that element. Atoms are very small. Several million atoms could fit in the period at the end of the sentence.
What is the difference between freezing rain and sleet?
Freezing rain is rain that falls as a liquid but turns to ice on contact with a freezing object to form a smooth ice coating called glaze. Usually freezing rain only lasts a short time, because it either turns to rain or to snow. Sleet is frozen or partially frozen rain in the form of ice pellets. Sleet forms when rain falls from a warm layer of air, passes through a freezing air layer near Earth's surface, and forms hard, clear, tiny ice pellets that can hit the ground so fast that they bounce off with a sharp click.
Why are the hot, humid days of summer called dog days?
This period of extremely hot, humid, sultry weather that traditionally occurs in the northern hemisphere in July and August received its name from the dog star Sirius of the constellation Canis Major. At this time of year, Sirius, the brightest visible star, rises in the east at the same time as the sun. Ancient Egyptians believed that the heat of this brilliant star added to the sun's heat to create this hot weather. Sirius was blamed for the withering droughts, sickness, and discomfort that occurred during this time. Traditional dog days start on July 3rd and end on August 11th.
Who developed the process for making ammonia?
Known since ancient times, ammonia, NH3, has been commercially important for more than 100 years. The first breakthrough in the large-scale synthesis of ammonia resulted from the work of Fritz Haber, 1863 to 1934.
What is the largest vein in the human body?
The largest vein in the human body is the inferior vena cava, the vein that returns blood from the lower half of the body back to the heart.
What is the most famous human pedigree?
The sex-linked pattern of the inheritance of haemophilia within the royal family of Queen Victoria. 1819 to 1901, and Prince Albert, 1819 to 1861, is perhaps the most famous human pedigree.
What are moonquakes?
Similar to earthquakes, moonquakes are a result of the constant shifting of molten or partly molten material in the interior of the moon. These moonquakes are usually very weak. Other moonquakes may be caused by the impact of meteorites on the moon's surface. Still others occur at regular intervals during a lunar cycle. suggesting that gravitational forces from Earth have an effect on the Moon similar to ocean tides.
How old is the solar system?
It is currently believed to be 4.5 billion years old. Earth and the rest of the solar system formed from an immense cloud of gas and dust. Gravity and rotational forces caused the cloud to flatten into a disk and much of the cloud's mass to drift into the center. This material became the Sun. The leftover parts of the cloud formed small bodies called planetesimals. These planetesimals collided with each other, gradually forming larger and larger bodies, some of which became the planets. This process is thought to have taken about 25 million years.
How does ethanol differ from gasohol?
Ethanol, E85, is a mixture of 85% ethyl alcohol and 15% gasoline. It can only be used in flexible fuel vehicles, FFVs. Flexible fuel vehicles are designed to run on gasoline, ethanol, E85, or any mixture of the two.
What is the difference between an ocean and a sea?
There is no neatly defined distinction between ocean and sea. One definition says the ocean is a great body of interconnecting salt water that covers 71% of Earth's surface. There are 5 major oceans: the Arctic, Atlantic, Indian, Pacific, and Southern, but some sources do not include the Arctic Ocean, calling it a marginal sea. The terms ocean and sea are often used interchangeably, but a sea is generally considered to be smaller than an ocean. The name is often given to saltwater areas on the margins of an ocean, such as the Mediterranean Sea.
Which parts of the brain are involved in higher order functions, such as learning and memory?
Higher order functions, such as learning and memory, involve complex interactions among areas of the cerebral cortex and between the cortex and other areas of the brain. Information is processed both consciously and unconsciously. Since higher order functions are not part of the programmed wiring of the brain, the functions are subject to modification and adjustment over time.
What are monoclonal antibodies?
Monoclonal antibodies are artificially produced antibodies designed to neutralize a specific foreign protein, antigen. Clone cells, genetically identical, are stimulated to produce antibodies to the target antigen. Most monoclonal antibody work so far has used cloned cells from mice infected with cancer. In some cases they are used to destroy cancer cells directly. In others they carry other drugs to combat the cancer cells.
What is a reflex?
A reflex is a predictable, involuntary response to a stimulus. It was given this name in the 18th century because it appeared that the stimulus was reflected off of the spinal cord to generate the response, just as light is reflected by a mirror. Reflexes allow the body to respond quickly to internal and external changes in the environment in order to maintain homeostasis. Reflexes that involve the skeletal muscles are called somatic reflexes. Reflexes that involve responses of smooth muscle, cardiac muscle, or a gland are called visceral or autonomic reflexes.
Who invented the electron microscope?
The theoretical and practical limits to the use of the optical microscope were set by the wavelength of light. When the oscilloscope was developed, it was realized that cathode ray beams could be used to resolve much finer detail because their wavelength was so much shorter than that of light. In 1928 Ernst Ruska, 1906 to 1988, and Max Knoll, 1897 to 1969, using magnetic fields to focus electrons in a cathode ray beam, produced a crude instrument that gave a magnification of 17, and by 1932 they had developed an electron microscope having a magnification of 400. By 1937 James Hillier, 1915 to 2007, had advanced this magnification to 7,000. The 1939 instrument Vladimir Zworykin, 1889 to 1982, developed gave 50 times more detail than any optical microscope ever could, with a magnification up to 2 million. The electron microscope revolutionized biological research. For the first time scientists could see the molecules of cell structures, proteins, and viruses.
What is the largest number mentioned in the Bible?
The largest number specifically named in the Bible is 1,000,000, i.e., a million. It is found in 2 Chronicles 14:9.
Do you really hear the ocean when you hold a seashell to your ear?
Although the sounds heard in a seashell are reminiscent of hearing the ocean, in reality they are ambient, soft sounds that have been resonated and thereby amplified by the seashell's cavity. The extreme sensitivity of the human ear to sound is illustrated by the seashell resonance effect.
What characteristics do all fungi share?
In the earliest classification systems, fungi were classified as plants. The first classification system to recognize fungi as a separate kingdom was proposed in 1784. Researchers identified 4 characteristics shared by all fungi. Fungi lack chlorophyll. The cell walls of fungi contain the carbohydrate chitin, the same tough material a crab shell is made of. Fungi are not truly multicellular since the cytoplasm of one fungal cell mingles with the cytoplasm of adjacent cells, and fungi are heterotrophic eukaryotes. Unable to produce their own food from inorganic matter, while plants are autotrophic eukaryotes.
What is needed for DNA replication?
DNA replication is a complex process requiring more than a dozen enzymes, nucleotides, and energy. In eukaryotic cells there are multiple sites called origins of replication. At these sites, enzymes unwind the helix by breaking the double bonds between the nitrogen bases. Once the molecule is opened, separate strands are kept from rejoining by DNA stabilizing proteins. DNA polymerase molecules read the sequences in the strands being copied and catalyze the addition of complementary bases to form new strands.
What are Kuiper belt objects?
Kuiper belt objects, KBOs, are, as their name implies, objects that originate from or orbit in the Kuiper belt. Only one KBO was known for more than 60 years, Pluto. Many KBOs have been discovered since 1992, however. And the current estimate is that there are millions, if not billions, of KBOs. KBOs are basically comets without tails, icy dirt balls that have collected together over billions of years. If they get large enough, such as Pluto, did they evolve as other massive planet-like bodies do, forming dense cores that have a different physical composition than the mantle or crust above it. Most short-period comets, those with relatively short orbital times of a few years to a few centuries, are thought to originate from the Kuiper belt.
Who was Darwin's bulldog?
Thomas Huxley, 1825 to 1895, was a staunch supporter of Darwin's work. In fact, Huxley wrote a favorable review of Darwin's On the Origin of Species that appeared soon after its publication. When the firestorm of controversy began after the appearance of Darwin's book, Huxley was ready and able to defend Darwin, whose chronic public reticence about his theories was at that time exacerbated by illness. Huxley's defense of Darwin was so vigorous during a debate with Bishop Samuel Wilberforce, 1805 to 1873. at the British Association for the Advancement of Science in 1860 that he earned the title Darwin's Bulldog.
What are the four humors of the body?
The four constituent humors of the body were identified as blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile, originating in the heart, brain, liver, and spleen, respectively. Empedocles of Agrigentum, 504 to 433 BCE, probably originated the theory in which he equated the body fluids to the four elements of nature: earth, fire, air, and water. These humors could determine the health of the body and the personality of the person as well. To be in good health, the humors should be in harmony within the body. Ill health could be remedied by treatments to realign the humors and re-establish the harmony.
What gives coral their colors?
Coral have a symbiotic relationship with zooxanthellae. Zooxanthellae are photosynthetic dinoflagellates, one-celled animals that give coral their characteristic colors of pink, purple, and green. Coral that have expelled the zooxanthellae appear white.
Is there a quick and easy way to test for soil acidity or alkalinity?
Some gardeners make a simple taste and smell test to check the soil. Acid soil smells and tastes sour. Some put a soil sample in a jar of vinegar. If the vinegar starts to bubble, your soil has plenty of lime. If there are no bubbles, lime the soil with 4 ounces. 113 grams of lime for every square yard, 0.84 square meter.
Which bear lives in a tropical rainforest?
The Malayan sun bear, Ursus malayanus, is one of the rarest animals in the tropical forests of Sumatra, the Malay Peninsula, Borneo, Burma, Thailand, and southern China. The smallest bear species, with a length of 3.3 to 4.6 feet, 1 to 1.4 meters, and weighing 60 to 143 pounds, 27 to 65 kilograms, it has a strong, stocky body. Against its black, short fur it has a characteristic orange-yellow colored crescent across its chest, which according to legend represents the rising sun. With powerful paws having long, curved claws to help it climb trees in the dense forests, it is an expert tree climber. The sun bear tears at tree bark to expose insects, larvae, and the nests of bees and termites. Fruit, coconut palms, and small rodents are also part of its diet. Sleeping and sunbathing during the day, it is active at night. Unusually shy and retiring, cautious, and intelligent. The sun bear is declining in population as its native forests are being destroyed.
Who made the first organic compound to be synthesized from inorganic ingredients?
In 1828, Friedrich Wöhler, 1800 to 1882, synthesized urea from ammonia and cyanic acid. This synthesis dealt a death blow to the vital force theory, which held that definite and fundamental differences existed between organic and inorganic compounds. The Swedish chemist Jöns Jacob Berzelius, 1779 to 1848, had proposed that the two classes of compounds were produced from their elements by entirely different laws. Organic compounds were produced under the influence of a vital force and so were incapable of being prepared artificially. This distinction ended with Wöhler's synthesis.
How does an electromagnet work?
Danish physicist Hans Christian Ørsted, 1777 to 1851, was the first to observe a connection between electricity and magnetism. He found that a current in a wire caused a nearby compass needle to rotate thereby establishing that an electric current always produces a magnetic field around itself. When an electric current flows through a wire wrapped around a piece of iron, it creates a magnetic field in the iron. Electromagnets are used in a wide variety of applications, including doorbells, switches, and valves in heating and cooling equipment to telephones. Large machinery used to lift heavy loads of scrap metal, and particle accelerators.
What is the composition of Earth's atmosphere?
Earth's atmosphere, apart from water vapor and pollutants, is composed of 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, and less than 1% each of argon and carbon dioxide. There are also traces of hydrogen, neon, helium, krypton, xenon, methane, and ozone. Earth's original atmosphere was probably composed of ammonia and methane. 20 million years ago the air started to contain a broader variety of elements. The atmosphere weighs approximately 5 million billion tons. It exerts an average of 14.7 pounds per square inch, psi, of pressure on the surface of the planet.
What are the major developmental milestones during infancy?
A normal infant will double his or her birth weight by 5 or 6 months of age and triple his or her birth weight during the first year of life. Major developmental milestones during infancy are summarized in the table below. There is considerable variation between individuals, but these are within the normal range.
How does short-term memory differ from long-term memory?
Short-term memory, also called primary memory, refers to small bits of information that can be recalled immediately. The recalled information has no permanent importance, such as a name or telephone number that is only used once. Long-term memory is the process by which information that for some reason is interpreted as being important is remembered for a much longer periods. Short-term memories may be converted to long-term memories.
How fast does a snail move?
Many snails move at a speed of less than 3 inches, 8 centimeters, per minute. This means that if a snail did not stop to rest or eat, it could travel 16 feet, 4.8 meters, per hour.
What are some commercial uses of plant hormones?
Plant hormones are used in a variety of applications to control some aspect of plant development. Auxins are used in commercial herbicides as weed killers. Another use of auxins is to stimulate root formation. It is often referred to as the rooting hormone and applied to cuttings prior to planting. Some hormones are used to increase fruit production and prevent pre-harvest fruit drop. Gibberellins are sprayed on Thompson seedless grapes during the flowering stage to thin the flowers on each cluster, thus allowing the remaining flowers to spread out and develop larger fruit. Gibberellins are also used to enhance germination and stimulate the early emergence of seedlings in grapes. Citrus fruits, apples, peaches, and cherries. When used on cucumber plants, gibberellins promote the formation of male flowers, which is useful in the production of hybrid seeds.
Do camels store water in their humps?
The hump or humps do not store water, since they are fat reservoirs. The ability to go long periods without drinking water, up to 10 months if there is plenty of green vegetation and dew to feed on, results from a number of physiological adaptations. One major factor is that camels can lose up to 40% of their body weight with no ill effects. A camel can also withstand a variation of its body temperature by as much as 14 degrees. A camel can drink 30 gallons of water in 10 minutes and up to 50 gallons over several hours. A one-humped camel is called a dromedary or Arabian camel. A Bactrian camel has 2 humps and lives in the wild on the Gobi Desert. Today, the Bactrian is confined to Asia, while most of the Arabian camels are on African soil.
Which nations contribute to the International Space Station?
16 nations, representing 5 space agencies, contribute scientific, technological, and financial resources and knowledge to the International Space Station. The cooperating nations are, the United States, National Aeronautics and Space Administration or NASA. Russia, Russian Federal Space Agency, Canada, Canadian Space Agency or CSA, Japan. Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency or JAXA, Brazil, and 11 member countries of the European Space Agency, ESA. The 11 member countries of the ESA are, Belgium, Denmark, France, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, Norway, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, and the United Kingdom.
What are designer drugs, such as China White?
Designer drugs are synthesized chemicals that resemble such available narcotics as fentanyl and meperidine. China White, 3-methylfentanyl, is one of these drugs and is an analog of fentanyl. It is 3,000 times more potent than morphine. Even small amounts can be fatal. And it has been responsible for more than 100 overdose deaths in California.
What is a hoodoo?
A hoodoo is a fanciful name for a grotesque rock pinnacle or pedestal. Usually of sandstone, that is the result of weathering in a semi-arid region. An outstanding example of a hoodoo occurs in the Wasatch Formation at Bryce Canyon, Utah.
When was the first zoo in the United States established?
The Philadelphia Zoological Garden, chartered in 1859, was the first zoo in the United States. The zoo was delayed by the Civil War, financial difficulties, and restrictions on transporting wild animals. It opened in 1874 on 33 acres, 13 hectares, and 282 animals were exhibited.
Where are the largest oil and gas fields in the world and in the United States?
The Ghawar field, discovered in 1948 in Saudi Arabia, is the largest in the world. It measures 150 x 22 miles, 241 x 35 kilometers. The largest oil field in the United States is the Permian Basin, which covers approximately 100,000 square miles. 160,934 square kilometers, in southeast New Mexico and western Texas.
How is mutation rate calculated?
The mutation rate is generally expressed as the number of mutations per cell divisions. Per gamete, or per round of replication.
Who developed psychodrama?
Psychodrama was developed by Jacob L. Moreno, 1892–1974, a psychiatrist born in Romania, who lived and practiced in Vienna until he came to the United States in 1927. He soon began to conduct psychodrama sessions and founded a psychodrama institute in Beacon, New York, in 1934. Largely because of Moreno's efforts, it is practiced worldwide. Psychodrama is defined as a method of group psychotherapy in which personality makeup, interpersonal relationships, conflicts, and emotional problems are explored by means of special dramatic methods.
What are the stages of labor?
The goal of labor is the birth of a new baby. Labor is divided into 3 stages: 1. Dilation, 2. Expulsion, and 3. Placental. Delivery of the fetus occurs during expulsion.
What is a variable?
A variable is something that is changed or altered in an experiment. For example, to determine the effect of light on plant growth, growing one plant in a sunny window and one in a dark closet will provide evidence as to the effect of light on plant growth. The variable is light.
Which disease is the deadliest?
The most deadly infectious disease was the pneumonic form of the plague. The so-called Black Death of 1347 to 1351, with a mortality rate of 100%. Today, the disease with the highest mortality, almost 100%, is rabies in humans when it prevents the victim from swallowing water. This disease is not to be confused with being bitten by a rabid animal. With immediate attention, the rabies virus can be prevented from invading the nervous system, and the survival rate in this circumstance is 95%. AIDS, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. First reported in 1981, is caused by HIV, the human immunodeficiency virus. In 1993, HIV infection was the most common cause of death among persons aged 25 to 44 years. In 1999 alone, 14,802 U.S. residents died from the AIDS/HIV infection. According to the National Center for Health Statistics, although still a significant cause of death among persons aged 25 to 44, it is no longer the most common cause of death.